It's all quiet in the underground bunker. Doors closed, locks bolted. But the Great One isn't just resting on his laurels. He's making sure your weekend is even better by giving you his best. This is the best of Mark Levin.
A couple of very big issues out there in America that affect us incredibly. We can be on the precipice of Iran having a nuclear warhead on an intercontinental ballistic missile aimed at our country if things don't turn out right. If there's to be some kind of deal, then the deal would have to ensure that the nuclear material is removed from the control of the Iranians, put in the control of a third party or even us that can be completely trusted. But they're not going to agree to that. That inspectors from the United States, from the EU, somewhere other than the UN, actually gets to go anywhere and everywhere, but they're not going to permit that. And I can go on down the list. So I'm not sure what kind of negotiations going on with Mr. Witkoff. I hope he understands the gravity of the situation. I don't know him. But the bottom line is this. I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for any of the advisors. I voted for Donald Trump. You voted for Donald Trump. We're putting faith in him, rightly so, to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Not during his presidency, ever. Ever. So even as they begin these negotiations, or actually they're into the teeth of them, it's hard to imagine how Iran will never get a nuclear weapon once Donald Trump leaves. What if they violate the deal? What if there's some liberal Democrat president like an Obama or like a Biden or something like that? Plus, it's a funny thing about terrorists. They lie. They cheat. They steal. They murder. They maim. So they're going to sign a piece of paper and comply with it? What we know is with the Obama deal, they didn't do any of that. You can Google it yourself. You don't need me. You can go look on the internet yourself. They prevented certain inspectors from inspecting. No military sites, and it goes on and on and on, the long list. It's the UN now banging the pots and pans, the IAEA as they call it, saying, hey, look, they're going to get a nuclear weapon. They won't let us do the inspections we need to do, and it is a 5-alarm fire. We may actually have, not just in our lifetimes, in the course of the Trump presidency, Iran with a nuclear weapon. Biden helped fund it. Biden helped protect them. Obama laid the path, and it was left to Donald Trump and we, his voters, to say, no, that's enough. It'll be interesting to see if there is a deal, what kind of deal this is, because I can't imagine that the Iranians will be forced to dismantle their program and to provide their nuclear materials to another country. They've played these tactics before with Obama, with Biden, with the Europeans and the UN, these salami tactics, a little slice here and a little slice here. Or if you prefer this rope-a-dope, where they buy time. The problem is we're out of time. I want to know how you'll feel. I want to know how you'll feel if the regime in Iran has a nuclear weapon. I want to know how you'll feel. I'm very concerned about it. Deeply, deeply, gravely concerned. Iran is weaker than it's ever been. Its military is weaker than it's ever been. Its air defenses were all but wiped out by Israel last year. It's economically in very, very severe, dire straits. If you're going to do something, you would do it now. You would do it now. The other concern is if it appears there's appeasement, then China's going to get the wrong message as well. China will look and say, oh, okay, America's a paper tiger. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I know people in the radical media, they're constantly looking for ways to damage our relationship. I'm talking as a general matter to you, my fellow Americans. I'm not playing gotcha. I'm not playing games. I leave it to Mediaite, Media Matters, Drudge Report. They can all do it. And they can proudly tell their children and grandchildren that when the earth was on the line, that they were busy playing gotcha. That's what they do. They're grifters. They want their hits. They want their clicks and so forth and so on. So are many podcasters. So are many subscription-based platforms. Same thing. We don't do that here. I don't do it. This is deadly serious. And of course, the fact of the matter is these people are not 10 feet tall. The fact of the matter is they can be easily defeated. That is, their nuclear sites. It would be the Israelis who are on the front line, be the Israelis taking point, and they want to get it done. It wouldn't be our soldiers. Nobody's dragging anybody into a war. If you're a normal, mature adult, and you see somebody who's trying to get nuclear weapons and they keep talking about destroying you and destroying your country and destroying your family, you take that seriously. If you have a next-door neighbor who keeps threatening to kill you and your family every day, and they're not shy about it, and they are in pursuit of certain types of weapons, what do you say? That's okay. I don't expect them to do anything. No, you don't, do you? So a whole nation? A whole nation should be on its knees and hope that Islamo-Nazis have a completely different ideology than the rest of us? I believe the better life is the next life. And the way you get to the better life in the next life is killing as many of us who get in the way of pure Islam. You turn the other cheek, you close your eyes. I'll say this about the Israelis. They are warriors. They are warriors. They know what it's like to get hit. But don't we? Weren't we hit on 9/11? Who hit us on 9/11? Who hit us? The Islamists hit us. They hit us in a way we didn't expect. Do you think if the Islamists who hit us on 9/11 had a dirty bomb or biological or chemical weapon or an atomic weapon, they wouldn't have used it? They wouldn't have blown New York City off the face of the map? In fact, the whole metropolitan area? Of course they would have. So I ask you, exactly what kind of deal will prevent these people from getting a nuclear weapon now or 10 years from now? I'm just curious. And why, when somebody brings this up, are they immediately attacked by these rabid piranha, these ignoramuses, who sound like the Islamists? Why is that? There's one pundit, not particularly bright, but very popular, attacks our friend Douglas Murray, says he's on a war tour. Douglas Murray, who went to Israel, who went to Gaza, who went to Lebanon. He saw what took place, the aftermath. And there he is debating a comic and a former comic and UFC announcer who continue to mock him while he's not with them. I guess that's popular. That draws attention. Isolationism isn't anti-war. It's very provocative. When you're looking a terrorist regime in the eye, and they're telling you they want to kill you, and they are developing nuclear weapons, why would you attack the messenger who's telling you better pay attention to that and you better do something about that? Is that what it takes to be a popular podcaster? Is that what it takes to sell subscriptions? And then they want you to believe it's a new way of thinking. It's not a new way of thinking. Appeasement's not a new way of thinking. Pacifism, isolationism in the face of an enemy is not a new way of thinking. It's a deadly way of thinking. I can give example after example, modern and ancient history. You folks have to decide. If you're comfortable with Iran getting a nuclear weapon, or if you're comfortable with some kind of an arrangement that suggests they won't get a nuclear weapon, then that's that. If you're not, you better contact your member of Congress, and you better contact them immediately. There needs to be pressure against the pressure that's out there to do nothing. There needs to be a counter pressure. Some of the people who are out there talking are barely pubescent. Barely pubescent. Others have built their careers on being sort of counterculture types. They think it's cool. To me, it's not about counterculture. It's not about any of that stuff. If you are so stupid that you think you can manage a nuclear weapon or dozens of them in the hands of Islamist terrorists, you shouldn't have any following. And you are giving aid and comfort to the enemy with your big mouth and your propaganda and your bullcrap. They read what people are saying, they hear what people are saying, and they're emboldened by it. I remain confident that President Trump understands this. I remain confident that he will continue to confront this. And, like Joe Biden funded all this activity and so forth and so on, barely got criticized by anybody other than a handful of us like me. Yeah. So I just let you know what's going on out there. I continue to have confidence in the president. I don't have confidence in some of the people around him and some of the people in the media and people like Mediaite and the others that are distracting America. Let me just put it to you this way. We are looking terrorists in the eye. We're threatening tens of millions of us with death. They say so. It's not my imagination. It's not the imagination of neocons and warmongers. Tens of millions of was death as they are developing nuclear weapons and are within weeks of succeeding. Is there any generation of Americans before us that would not have dealt a deadly blow to such an enemy before they could destroy us? Is there any? Other than this one? Will we be the first? It's not as if this is the imagination of the warmongers run amok. And how insane are those who demand that we essentially ignore this threat or appease it in some fashion? And why do you listen to those people? Why do you listen to these people? Who are they? What do they know? They don't know anything. These are the great know-nothings of our time. I have to admit, I'm getting sick and tired of this Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They keep saying you didn't have due process, except for the fact that we brought up the other day He had due process in front of a immigration law judge who ruled that he more likely was a member of MS-13 than not. Then he appealed it to the Board of Immigration Appeals, and that board said exactly the same thing. There's due process twice. He was ordered deported. Of course, he snuck away, worked his way into the population. Then there's a technical issue, they say, with this last deportation, so he must be brought back. Technical issue. Now, this technical issue isn't a technical issue of substance. Do you understand what I mean? It's a technical issue of process. So if, in fact, President Trump would send him back to the United States, which he must not and will not, he'd go through a process and eventually be sent back to El Salvador. The gang that he said was threatening him doesn't exist anymore. And there's really no evidence of any threats of any kind. What this does, though, is it exposes the Democrat Party and the left and the media to you over and over and over again. This is just the latest example. Do you know the name of a single woman who was sold into sex slavery during the 4 years of the Biden regime? You don't know the name of one. Do you know the name of a single child or minor, unaccompanied, who came into this country who was missing? You don't know the name of one. Why is that? Because to expose that would have destroyed the Biden administration and his party. And to do it each and every day and bring up one name after another, and after another, would obviously demolish, it would obliterate the Democrat Party. So they weren't going to do that in the media. And so their cause celeb is for an MS-13 wife beater who did have due process. I understand Joe Rogan is upset that he didn't get due process, but then again, he did get due process. In this case, there was a technical error, and he will remain in El Salvador. If he gets back to the United States somehow, he'll still be deported. That's an example of a constitutional violation. That's extremism. We can't do stuff like that. Yeah, right. In the end, most of these people, ladies and gentlemen, are grifters. Most of these people are self-important. People need to think about the country first. That's what they need to do. Think about the country first. And they don't. And let's see here, Mr. Producer. Check what I'm sending you, Rich, if you don't mind. Here's a media montage of this guy, Garcia. Hat tip Representative Wesley Hunt on X. Cut one, go.
A Maryland man thought to be wrongly deported.
Deported Maryland man Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
A Maryland man wrongfully deported.
A Maryland man who was mistakenly deported.
The Maryland man that was detained.
The Maryland man mistakenly deported to a prison in El Salvador.
They're not even trying to bring back a Maryland man.
He's a Maryland man.
Maryland man.
The Maryland man.
Maryland man.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man.
The Maryland man. Maryland man.
The Maryland man.
The Maryland man they shipped to El Salvador.
The Maryland man who was sent to El Salvador.
This man from Maryland.
A Maryland man, the case of a Maryland man.
The Maryland man.
Maryland man. Maryland man.
Maryland man.
That Maryland man.
The case of the Maryland man.
Maryland man.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia, that's a Maryland man.
The Maryland man.
This Maryland man.
The Maryland man.
The Maryland man.
He had no intent of returning the Maryland man.
A wrongly deported man, Maryland man, I should say.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland father.
Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, that's the Maryland father.
Maryland father who had been deported.
There's this young man from Maryland, a father.
A Maryland father who came here at age 16.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland father.
Maryland father.
Maryland father.
Mistakenly deported father. The Maryland father mistakenly deported.
The Maryland father who was wrongfully deported.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland father from Maryland.
Maryland father.
This Maryland father who was wrongly deported.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland dad.
The Maryland father mistakenly deported.
The Maryland father.
He is not a Maryland man. He is not a Maryland anything. He is an illegal alien from El Salvador with a deportation order from the United States.
It's our buddy Miller. The Maryland man. I remember the Marlboro man. I don't remember the Maryland man. You know what they're known for in Maryland? The food they're known for, Mr. Producer? Crabs. Have you ever had crabs from Maryland? I wonder if this Maryland man has crabs. Just curious. The the Maryland man. They mean the wife beater. The same party that's destroying women's sports, girls' sports, the same party that oversaw hundreds of thousands of women sold into sex slavery because of their open border policies, the same party that saw tens of thousands of unaccompanied minors, including little girls, gone missing, probably sold into sex as well. They don't know the name of a single one, and they don't care. That party, the Democrat Party, the Maryland man. Now, under no circumstances is he a Maryland man. And this is the party that tells you to follow the law, that they believe in the law. No, they don't. They're lawless. They're lawless miscreants and malcontents. That's what they are, lawless in every respect. Van Hollen on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream. Cut 2, go.
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.
Mm-hmm. Guy's tripping, all right. Tripping. Let's go to cut 3, Van Hollen. This guy, he's made a name for himself. He's a great, great hero with the MS-13 crowd. They love the guy. Go ahead.
I would say they were illegally abducted by U.S. government agents and then taken to foreign prisons against the law. And the reason why it's important to treat each of these cases individually under the law is because our Constitution requires...
No, that's not right. The reason is, ladies and gentlemen, is because we can't handle the load, and we never will, and we will have millions of people here illegally, including gang members from Venezuela, gang members from El Salvador, other kinds of brutal murders, rapists, torturers, you name it. And they will effectively have backdoor amnesty. I don't know why I'm the only one that keeps explaining this. The system is overwhelmed. It can't handle it. And so when you have morons going, due process, there's different types of due process. There's executive due process, administrative due process, and then, of course, full-blown constitutional due process. They just throw the phrase, each case needs to be looked at individually. At what point does it need to look at individually? As I've said before, people need to explain themselves. If you catch somebody on the border and you see them coming across illegally, do you pull them into the country, say, we'll see you in the immigration court in 4 years? 1.5 million people have not been heard in their immigration cases in front of administrative law judges. These are bureaucrats, not real judges. 95% who get court dates don't show up. And this is the system that these fools want you to believe can handle the quote-unquote due process cases. And so the Democrats broke the system. Their cheerleaders broke the system. Their media broke the system. First, they told us the border was secure, and then they genuflect, completely turned, and said, well, we need bipartisan immigration legislation. They didn't need any such thing. We said they didn't need any such thing. Before that, we said the border wasn't secure. Millions of people coming across the border, and they lied, and the media lied, just as they lied about Joe Biden having any level of intelligence, quite frankly. And they're lying now about this guy. They're trying to turn him into a due process celebrity. But he had due process multiple times during the course of this process. Oh, yes, he did. You can read the record yourselves. Let's go to cut 4, Mr. Producer. Dana Bash on the Constipated News Network with Van Hollen. Go.
Can you say with absolute certainty that he is not, nor has he ever been a member of the MS-13 gang? And did you ask him point blank?
Okay, stop right there. Good question. For once. Good question. You get a pat on the head. Good question. Go ahead.
Well, Dana, what Donald Trump is trying to do here is change the subject. The subject at hand is that he and his administration are defying...
Isn't it funny how he doesn't answer the question? And then blames Trump for changing the subject? Trump hasn't said a word. We're waiting for you. Genius. By the way, this is a guy that's also been trashing the Israelis and Netanyahu left and right. He could be a podcaster, don't you think, Mr. Producer? Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Order to give Abrego Garcia his due process rights. They are trying to litigate on social media what they should be doing in the courts.
You asked the question, moron. Is he or has he ever been a member of MS-13 gang? We have two courts that have adjudicated this, and both courts, that is, immigration courts such as they are, but that's the official process. Number one, at the lowest level, said there's more evidence that he is than he's not, because he said he wasn't, but they said, well, we've got some evidence here that you are. And he appealed that, specifically appealed that to the Board of Immigration Appeals that said, we uphold what the lower administrative law judge said. There's more evidence that you are than you're not. Is that not due process? What is that? What is that? Is that a comedy show? What is that? That's why Chris Van Hollen can't answer the question. That's why he won't answer the question. As all the time and effort and resources are spent on this MS-13 wife beater who's here illegally in the first instance. Where are all the women's groups? Where's everybody? We know for a fact that he beat his wife. She put it in her own handwriting. She filed it in 2019. There it is, in her own handwriting. And yet they try and turn him into a sympathetic figure. Sympathetic figure. Incredible.
Mark Levin. Making your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
Mr. and Mrs. America, I want to thank you. As our radio ratings start to come in, we are up big in every single market that has come in so far, and that's thanks to you. It's also what I tell people who come up to me and say, I'd like to get into radio, what should I do? I tell them, be yourself and tell the truth. And take stands that you believe in. Don't take stands just because other people take them. And that's the truth, too. Pete Hegseth this today, who I think is a terrific Secretary of Defense, as a matter of fact, talking about these alleged leakers and these reports on the leaks. And he says that really these people and this attack is designed to try and stop President Trump's agenda. That is his foreign policy agenda. Now, I've been warning here about these isolationists who come out of the Soros Koch Quincy Institute and some of their other entities that they've created, Koch in particular. I've been warning about podcasters. I've been warning about people with subscription service platforms and so forth. They're out there. They're a small minority. They are cabal, and they are pushing positions that are utterly anti-American, and they're not in our best interests. I mean, I think if you ask 9 out of 10 people on the street if it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, they'd say absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because people are smart. The American people are smart. What's interesting is these folks who want you to believe they have a bigger and broader influence than they actually do throughout the country and also with President Trump. These people have come up with nothing new. There's nothing new about their foreign policy. George McGovern used to spew it. In the 1970s, he was considered a leftist. Pacifism, isolationism, appeasement is not new. In fact, it's quite old. And it's resulted in the death of many, many people, millions of people. In the face of a regime that is an Islamist Nazi regime whose ideology is well understood, who says death to America over and over again, to make common good with these people, to interview these people, to embrace these people, to give aid and comfort to them by the way you attack those who dare to speak out and warn the American people about what's taking place. We've seen this throughout American history. It's about as close to treasonous as you can get. They are the modern-day Tokyo Roses, except the difference is they're Americans. Americans with mouthpieces, not foreigners. I want you to listen to Pete Hegseth on Fox and Friends this morning about what's taking place. Cut 8, go.
If you remember when this all started, the first go-around, because this is the second go-around, right? They peddle old stuff, they kick it back up. I said repeatedly, no one's texting war plans. You know why I said that? Because I'm in the bowels of the Pentagon every single day. Just 10 minutes ago, I was looking at actual war plans of things that were ongoing or pending things to happen. Because that's on a regular basis on classified systems. That's my job for the war fighters, for the President of the United States. I look at war plans every single day. What was shared over Signal then and now, however you characterize it, was informal, unclassified coordinations for media coordination and other things. That's what I've said from the beginning. At the beginning, it was left-wing reporters from The Atlantic who got a hold of it and then wanted to create a problem for the president. This is what it's all about, trying to get at President Trump and his agenda. Now, here at the Defense Department, because, Brian, I want this to be very clear. We take the classification of information very important. It's very significant to us that we safeguard it. And so when we had leaks, which we have had here, we did a serious leak investigation. And through that leak investigation, unfortunately, we found some folks that we believe were not holding to the protocols that we hold dear here at the Defense Department. Through that investigation, they have been moved on, and that investigation continues. As a result of that, everything we do here is above board, trying to make sure that we safeguard information. In this point, those folks who were leaking, who have been pushed out of the building, are now attempting to leak and sabotage the president's agenda and what we're doing. And that's unfortunate. It's not what I do. It's not how we operate. And so you've got another allegation being pushed again, not based on how we're operating around here. We're for the warfighters. We're for the president. And none of this is based in reality.
You know, this is very important to understand. I know who these people are. I don't know about these three specifically. I'm talking about I know what this mindset is. I know where it comes from. I know who's pushing it. Radical libertarians, in the case of Koch, and American Marxists in the case of Soros. And they've come together to push the same agenda. They've created institutes together. They have created, as Rush would say, mind-numb robots who push this stuff, and they actually want you to believe the opposite of what you know to be true, that nuclear weapons in the hand of the Iranians is okay, and that any deal with Iran is okay. Just don't take military action to put an end to it. You know how long that military action would take? First of all, Israel will be the point of the spear, not us. But secondly, maybe 12 hours. That's it. The Israelis knocked out the nuclear site in Syria. In Syria. The U.S. policy was for them not to do that, but they did it anyway. Because they know the consequences of a mushroom cloud like I showed you over the weekend, or you can see on the internet. For the state of Israel, it would mean it wouldn't exist anymore. No prime minister in his right mind could ever tolerate a nuclear weapon in the hands of the enemy. And there are many in the Middle East. No American president can tolerate a nuclear weapon in the hands of people who share the same ideology, the same terrorist mentality as those who hit us on 9/11. You have to be out of your mind. And yet we actually have people who have platforms. We now have people who are embracing the enemy, who are promoting the enemy, and accusing America and Donald Trump and you and me of being warmongers. And now you have people who are leaking, who are alleged to have leaked. And what Pete Hegseth says, some of them are his friends. I don't know the facts. I'm just reading what I'm reading. Is that the effort now is to undermine and stop Trump's agenda. Trump is not a blind ideologue. He's quite the contrary. His eyes are wide open. The battle now is over what Witkoff is doing, if it's going to be good enough, if some deal that they want to negotiate can actually work, given what we know about these terrorists and how they blow off their obligations, because the hour's late. The hour's late. We don't have 10 years to play with anymore. And they've reached the point where they can make nuclear weapons. And all this talk about stopping them from making nuclear weapons through various arrangements and deals and so forth, they have violated every single one of them. Which is what you would expect. They're terrorists. They do not believe in upholding contracts. That's a Western idea. They believe destroying you and me is what God commands them to do. This is why they slaughter each other, because you have the purest Muslims against Muslims who want to live and let live in their own countries. And the Muslims who want to live and let live are the ones who they attack and brutalize and rape and throw in the prisons and so forth. These are so-called purist Muslims. These are fundamentalists. These are terrorists. And I could bring on a Muslim friend after a Muslim friend, whether it's the bank manager that I know, whether it's Zuhdi Jasser that I know, whether it's people I deal with in other things that I do that I know. They'll tell you exactly the same thing. They're scared to death of these terrorists. Or maybe the over 500,000 people who were slaughtered in Syria. They were Muslims, for the most part. Or the people being murdered now in Yemen by the Houthis. They're Muslims. Or the people being slaughtered in Iran. They're Muslims. But their ultimate goal is the United States. Their ultimate goal is the United States. I don't know why the ignoramuses have the following they have, but it's not unusual. Lindbergh was an isolationist. Right up to minutes before we were attacked at Pearl Harbor. They said, don't worry about Hitler. He's too far away. He's not aimed at us, and screw Europe. Just like you hear guys like Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee, say, let's get out of NATO. Boy, is he out of his lane. Let's get out of NATO. The enemy would be thrilled with us getting out of NATO. And what if the Europeans are attacked? That's not our problem. I mean, we're not talking about ancient history here, America. We're talking about things that happened 80, 90, 100 years ago that resulted in over 400,000 Americans dying in battle. There wasn't a NATO before World War II, was there? There weren't American bases in Europe before World War II, was there? We're not an imperialist, colonialist country. We're Americans. And when people attack our country, they're attacking your brothers and sisters, your fathers and mothers, your ancestors who fought for this country. And Pete Hegseth is right. These isolationists, I don't care if they hang around the White House. I don't care if they hang around TV studios. I don't care if they have their own microphones with their video cameras. I don't give a crap what they have. They're undermining this administration. That's what they're doing. And so we will see if there's a deal, if the deal is the kind of deal that we as the American people think is a good deal or not. That's what we do. Now, here's the other thing. The left-wing media like Dan Abrams and that crap site he created, Mediaite, or the Washington Compost, or the New York Slimes, or all the rest of them. To them, this is a big game. Does somebody at Fox question XYZ? Does somebody at conservative radio question XYZ? I'm doing exactly what I've done for a quarter of a century behind this microphone. I'm doing exactly what I did as a senior member of the Reagan administration. It's not a question of taking on a president who I love in the case of Donald Trump or Ronald Reagan. It's not a question of taking them on at all. A decision hasn't been made. The battle right now is the battle of ideas. The kooks, who I've already defined, and the rest of us. That's the battle. So we're supposed to be quiet and silent at a time like this? I'm not leaking. You're not leaking. We're not threatening the administration. We're not undermining the President of the United States or the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of State or anybody else. They are, in the liberal media, they want Trump to fail. They want the economy to collapse. They want Fox to go away. They want conservative radio to evaporate. That's what they want. I'm just laying it out here, folks, based on my own knowledge and experience. I have tons of faith in Donald Trump because he's not one of these Lilliputians. I have nothing but the deepest contempt for sites like Mediaite, the Drudge Report, for newspapers like the Slimes that covered up the Holocaust, and so, by the way, did the Washington Compost. I have nothing but contempt for the main networks, for CNN and MSNBC that embrace Hamas and Hamas's data, that trash our country, that trash the state of Israel. They do the same thing over at Mediaite. I have nothing but the worst contempt for these people because they contribute nothing to the public debate. They provide no knowledge to the American people. They are, in my view, inciting violence with the kinds of things they say and the people they highlight over and over again. And by the way, as you're about to find out, we're back to Hitler and the Democrats and the media.
Mark Levin. You're listening to the best of Mark Levin.
Like you, I observe different people who are in the media a lot. Well, Mark, so are you. Well, I don't observe myself. I observe other people. Some I have absolutely no respect for. Some I have a great deal of respect for. I'm not a big Joe Rogan fan. The fact that he entertains these psychopaths and these Jew haters is about all I need to know. I'm not a big fan of Tucker's. Even worse, I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. But Mark, you know, the Hitler son, Elon Musk, went over to Israel. He saw what took place on October 7th. I know the leadership there is very fond of him, but that's not the test, really, for us, is it? I don't know Elon Musk. I met him once in passing. Early on, we tried to get him on our various shows. He was non-responsive. I haven't tried since then. I don't know if we could now or not, but I'm not interested. That's not why I'm doing this. Elon Musk is being badmouthed. He's being badmouthed by the ruling class in Washington, including some on the Republican side and in the White House. I know the president is enormously fond of Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a great patriot, and in many ways a great hero. He was part of the left. He was part of the Obama, team there for a while, and by that I mean voted for him. And what happened? Whatever it was, he saw the light. And he did something about it. He purchased Twitter. None of us ever thought Twitter could be redeemed. I resigned from Twitter the way I resigned from Facebook, and I've never gone back to Facebook. He had an investigation done on Twitter. They revealed the information they found that had taken place. Incredible information. Twitter was a bad investment. He knew it was a bad investment, and he bought it anyway. For multi-billions of dollars. And from that moment on, even before he joined the Trump campaign and so forth, he became the enemy of the left, of the Democrat Party and the media. Targeted, brutalized, investigated, character assassinated. Now they're trying to destroy his businesses. He didn't have to do anything. Do you know how many multi-billionaires we have who are Republicans who do nothing? Except sit there and pontificate about tariffs and so forth, which is fine. But they literally do nothing. Oh, they'll give money to a candidate and so forth and so on. That's nothing to these guys. They're multi-billionaires. Give $20 million, $50 million, even $100 million. That's snack money to many people. But when you literally leave your CEO positions and voluntarily commit your time to doing something that you know you're going to be attacked for, but is in the best interest of the United States. Bringing in brilliant people to do what has never been done in this country. Outsiders. Experts. Computer whizzes. Technological whizzes. To go through the departments and the agencies, a daunting task. To find waste and abuse and fraud, and they found a lot. Knowing full well that nobody's perfect, and that the enemy of the people would glom on any opportunity to exploit an error or an imperfection, when in fact he and his team are uncovering hundreds of billions of dollars in errors and imperfections. Takes a remarkable man. It's cost him maybe $100 billion. Tesla is hurting badly. It's bleeding. Half the country won't buy it because he's associated with it. These are the same people who hate you and me, by the way. They despise us. There's only two billionaires who I can think of who've put everything on the line, Elon Musk and Donald Trump. They've put everything on the line. Elon Musk has done things I never thought would be done or could be done under the presidency of Donald Trump. I served 8 years in the Reagan administration. We did a hell of a good job of rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. But in all honesty, it doesn't even compare to what Elon Musk has done with Donald Trump. It just doesn't. I'm not interested in bringing him on the show, TV, radio, Blaze, or anything like that. That's not the point. There's nothing in this for me. I'm speaking as a man, a person who loves this country. You will never see the likes of an Elon Musk again. You will never see the likes of what he and his team have done. You will never see that again. It's now or never. We either slash the federal government, the personnel, the departments, the agencies, the programs, now or never. The stars are aligned. I see some of the weak-kneed Republicans already going at it on Capitol Hill. I have no stomach for these people. None. I hear it said, well, if Elon Musk had gone about it a different way, there was no different way. There is no other way. He went about it the right way. You take it head on. That's just Washington, D.C. bureaucrat talk for doing nothing. He knew and he knows the clock is ticking from the moment the new president is sworn in. Your time is limited because the Lilliputians are always scheming. The lawyers are scheming. The special interests are scheming. The long-in-the-tooth politicians, Republicans and Democrats, they're scheming. How do we get rid of this guy? How do we sabotage this guy? And for the Democrats, it's always the same thing. Character assassination. Character assassination. Saul Alinsky. They learned well from their boy Saul Alinsky. Target and destroy. And so they target and destroy. As they've tried to target and destroy Waltz and tried to target and destroy Hegseth and, of course, Donald Trump, most of all. Elon Musk deserves not just our thanks. More than that. More than that. I'm reading a story now that he and the Treasury Secretary, this guy Bessent, were really going at it heavy duty over the head of the IRS. Bessent won the day. He got his man in. The former whistleblower against Hunter Biden, who'd been the acting, was then removed. Bessent got the guy he wanted. I don't know this guy Bessent from a hole in the ground. He means absolutely nothing to me. Zero. All I know is he hasn't come close in his private life when he started out with Soros or since in doing the things that Elon Musk has done. And of course, he's annoyed cabinet secretaries. Of course, he's annoyed agency heads. Of course, he's the target of endless leaks and attacks, not just by the Democrats, but by the insiders. That's how you know he's actually doing something and trying to get things done. But he had a lot at stake. His businesses. Tens of billions of dollars. His life with the threats that he faces. I'm 67 years old. I've seen a lot. I've been involved in politics since I was 13. I've been involved in the conservative movement since I was 13. I have fought the Republican establishment, whether in my township, Cheltenham Township, in Elkins Park, Pennsylvania, in my state of Pennsylvania. I fought them 1976 when a handful of us young Turks backed Ronald Reagan against Gerald Ford. I know who these people are, and I know how bad they are. I know how lousy they are. How they join in with the Democrats. Because they're perfectly happy with the way things are going. Does he post things that I always agree with? Of course not. Does he say things I always agree with? Of course not. So what? Who cares? All I know, from my own experience, using my own noggin, that I'm thankful this guy showed up on the scene. Almost out of nowhere, Mr. Producer. Just showed up. Helped get Donald Trump elected. Put his neck on the line. Put his money and his businesses on the line. Puts his life on the line. That much I do know. And all the little leakers out there, the anonymous leakers trashing him, and this guy Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, we'll see how good he is. It's just a matter of time. Just a matter of time. I don't know him. Doesn't matter if I do or not anyway, does it? I don't know Musk either. But I am an observer, and this is what I observe. I observe a man who actually creates things, builds things, unlike Soros, who moves money around and tries to destroy things, unlike his punk son. Billionaires who undermine this country, billionaires who hate this country because their money is global. Elon Musk is a patriot. He didn't have to do what he did. Like so many of these other billionaires I watch, these Republicans. Many of them, certainly the Democrats. I felt compelled to talk about this right off the top because of these cheap shot attacks I'm already reading on the guy, as he has announced. He's announced the following in an earnings call yesterday. Cut 10, Mr. Producer, go.
Starting probably in next month, May, my time allocation to Doge will drop significantly. I'll have to continue doing it for, I think, probably the remainder of the president's term, just to make sure that the waste and fraud that we stop does not come roaring back. But starting next month, I'll be allocating far more of my time to Tesla. And now that the major work of establishing the Department of Government Efficiency is done.
All I know is he's the one that provided Starlink to the people suffering in North Carolina. Nobody else had anything. Anything. All I know is when he's been called on by Donald Trump, he's been there. I didn't see Bessent on the campaign trail. Maybe he contributed to Donald Trump in enormous ways. financially? I have no idea. I never heard of him. I've been involved in the conservative movement, as I said, since I've been 13 years old. I never heard of him. But it was clear during the campaign that Musk was enormously helpful. It's clear during the Trump presidency he was enormously helpful. And I, for one, completely understand why he has to reallocate his time. But I'm sorry he has to.
Mark Levin. The Great One makes your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
Where did the show go? Where did it go, America? It's moving very quickly. Over at the Blaze, federal judge issues temporary restraining order against Trump deporting people under the Alien Enemies Act. I'll remind you, the Alien Enemies Act is actually a newer law than your Constitution, filed by the American Criminal Liberties Union. I noticed the American Criminal Liberties Union, a.k.a. the American Civil Liberties Union, a.k.a. the ACLU, hasn't brought many cases on behalf of Jewish students who have been harassed and attacked on college campuses. The mass deportation plans, Blaze News, of the Trump administration have once again been stymied by a federal judge issuing a temporary restraining order. This time it was U.S. District Judge Charlotte Sweeney of Denver, Colorado. It was her turn. She said that President Trump may be improperly invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. So she applies it nationwide. The ACLU argued that those tagged for removal from the U.S. needed to be given the opportunity to fight the deportation proceedings in court. Sweeney prohibited the government from deporting the 2 Venezuelan plaintiffs in the case and 100 others detained at a facility in Aurora that will be sent to a maximum security prison in El Salvador for terrorists. Sweeney opined the ACLU's legal challenge to the removals under the Alien Enemies Act would likely be successful based on other successful lawsuits against the Trump administration. See how they're piling on? Earlier in April, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled Trump could continue deportation proceedings under the law, but also unanimously found that those subject to deportation had a right to defend themselves against the orders. Now, that's very interesting. Has that always been the position of the Supreme Court? Really? Oh, we're going to look into that on Saturday as well. I will have time to dig it all up. Yes, we will. Van Hollen. That's a name that'll go down in infamy. Town Hall, Rebecca Downs. Van Hollen's post from 2017 on MS-13 comes back to haunt him. But he won't care. He won't give a damn. Chris Van Hollen has been talking quite a bit about the Maryland man, a deported illegal immigrant whose real name is Kilmar Armando Agassia. The Trump administration has provided evidence he's a member of MS-13, with the release of documents last week coming to the same day that Van Hollen traveled to El Salvador. And Van Hollen's focus becomes even more curious, given that back in 2017, during the first Trump administration, he was posting to his X account about concerns with MS-13 gang members. Why? Because they slaughtered teenagers in Maryland? The Maryland man? Oh, yeah. Quote, posted Van Hollen, quote, "Shame on President Trump for tearing apart hard-working immigrant families," he lamented. He also went to reference MS-13, indicating that, quote, "We should be focused on MS-13, not scholarship winners." Say what? Say what? We should be focused on MS-13, not scholarship winners. Van Hollen was referencing the deportation of another illegal alien, but a rising soccer star. The resurfacing of this post, which now is over hundreds of replies, is full of people recently calling on the senator to show more care and concern about his actual constituents. But there it is. It's the post. You should focus more on MS-13. They are. Oh, how can you prove it? I've already mentioned here that this Garcia, this MS-13 wife-beater that the Democrats are treating like Rosa Parks, that in fact he had his day in 2 courts, the immigration administrative law judge who said the evidence indicates more likely than not he was MS-13. And then the appeal to the Immigration Board of Appeals, where they agreed with the lower immigration judge. And you better bring him the hell back here. So this lunatic judge in Maryland is basically holding... Well, what is she doing? She is conducting an investigation of the lawyers and others from the government who sent this guy back home. Now, we have another federal judge, all in the last 48 hours, America. They're very busy. Breaking, another federal judge. Hold on here, all these damn advertisements. Don't you get sick of this, ladies and gentlemen? I don't go to websites anymore, or I'm not going to go to this one, that has these endless flags of advertising coming up. Do you see those, Mr. Producer? And they're annoying, especially when you're on your iPhone. You hit the X and my finger, I don't have a finger like a dwarf. You hit the damn X, and the advertisement comes up. Judge Royce Lamberth granted a preliminary injunction last month against the administration. I don't know what's happened to Royce Lamberth, but nothing good. I remember when he was a great judge. Trump administration must temporarily roll back its efforts to shutter the Voice of America, federal judge ruled Tuesday. Senior Judge Royce Lamberth of the U.S. District Court in District of Columbia ordered the government to restore the employment of hundreds of Voice of America workers and contractors, granting preliminary injunctions in 2 cases, challenging the constitutionality of the administration's efforts to close the news outlet. Voice of America director Michael Abramowitz and 2 Voya journalists sued the administration over actions it took last month to shutter the organization, following Trump's March 14 executive order. Now, Judge Royce, this is what you should have done if you really felt this way. If you're being a serious constitutional judge. Obviously, you don't like Trump and you can't control it, just like your left-wing friends on the court. Over lunch in the conference room, you guys must be having a blast, agreeing with each other. If you felt so strongly about this, you would have taken the parties that brought the case in front of the court and given them that relief that you gave, but not to every single employee in the agency. You've got the director and 2 so-called journalists. They sued. It wasn't a class action suit. It was 3 people. And so for you to go out of bounds like this, you're no better anymore than an activist left-wing kook judge. Placing on administrative leave or terminating all Voya employees, freezing the organization's congressionally appropriated funds, effectively forcing VOA to go dark, he writes, violate myriad acts of Congress. That's what Abramowitz asserted in a motion. The actions have forced VOA reporting to come to a halt, preventing the outlet from carrying out its statutory obligations to produce and broadcast news globally, the plaintiffs alleged. I think what the judge basically said is you can't just do this, you're president, but Congress has passed a statute and they funded it. And so I have a question for Royce Lamberth. Tell me, what part of the Constitution did you cite for that? What part of the Constitution did you cite for that? Because the precedent all you judges are creating is this. We have an unconstitutional 4th branch of government. It is massive. It's filled with fraud, waste, and abuse. It's unmanageable. A president comes into office. He sees a debt of $37 trillion. That's just on the books. Off the books, it's closer to $300 trillion when you take into consideration entitlements. The country's headed for a debt wall, a massive crisis. He's not slashing the government. There are agencies he wants to get rid of. And we have a judge who basically says, no, you need Congress's permission. And you'll have all kinds of legal analysts on TV who agree. And so I'm asking a first principles question. Judge Lamberth, where in the Constitution are you citing this power, number one, that you supposedly have in the Constitution? Not other judges, the Constitution. And number 2, how is this statute even constitutional? Based, again, on the Constitution. I'm just curious. It's exactly what the anti-federalist Yeats said, writing as Brutus. We're creating this judiciary that has ambiguous powers and whose members serve for life. It's exactly as Jefferson said after Marbury versus Madison. All this court and the lower courts will do is they'll cite each other for their authority as precedent. They'll just cite each other as precedent. There's nothing in the Constitution that creates this fourth branch. There's nothing in the Constitution that prevents a president from actually being the executive of the executive branch. There's nothing in the Constitution, Roy, that gives Congress the power to pass legislation on anything it wants. It's not a legislature that is free to do whatever it wants. I would encourage you, Royce, to read a really fantastic book by the late, great Raoul Berger, who was a good friend of Bob Bork's, among others, absolute genius. And he talks about the power of the courts. He also talks about the power of Congress, because you have this all screwed up. You have it upside down and all around, and now you're allowing a couple of people to bring a lawsuit, and you're ordering, literally, a president of the United States to keep open an agency and keep those people employed that he wants to shut and he wants to move out of the federal government, citing congressional statute or statutes, but not the Constitution. What would you cite in the Constitution? That Congress has the power of the purse? That doesn't give Congress the power to create something like this. I mean, you want to get back to first principles? Then let's get back to first principles. And this is where we are. The worst you should have done if you were going to do damage, and you clearly intended that, was to rule in favor of these three individuals. But you didn't do that. You went well beyond the bounds. Well beyond the bounds. You used to call the presidents, I remember you would tell me, the presidentials who think presidents have all this power, so it's a bias that he has. Now we can call them the judicials, Royce. You're the judicials who think you have all this power. Now, this is the second time you've ruled against Trump, isn't it, Royce? It is. You and another judge ruled on this transgender issue and said that Trump didn't have the authority to require men to be housed with men. Effectively, that's what you said. It's too bad. He and I used to be friends. There's no way that would happen again. No. This is just too much to stomach.
Mark Levin. We're giving you nothing but the best of Mark Levin.
Somebody told me there's going to be a new book out, Mr. Producer, on July 29th. I'm not even supposed to mention that, am I, Mr. Producer? You can't find it anywhere. It's not on Amazon. I'm just looking at it because I just finished it. You're going to love this, love it. I know there's a lot of books out. Some people wrote them, most did not. But it doesn't matter. It won't be what I'm going to be offering to you because I write these for you and the audience. I don't... All these books people write about themselves. I'm not writing a book about myself. I wrote a book, Rescuing Sprite. It's the second book I ever wrote. It's about the family and our dog, and I did it really because it was very depressing. We had to put our little baby to sleep, and Simon & Schuster, I had to deal with them to write a book, and I said, I'm not writing a book anymore. And then David Limbaugh, my lawyer, suggested, maybe you can write a book about your family and the dog and the implications of that. I said, well, maybe I can. And then Simon & Schuster came back and said, we have an idea. We will do that book, then the other book. So we did that book called Rescuing Sprite. And the other book that almost didn't get written was called Liberty and Tyranny, Mr. Producer. So that's how this got going. I'm not even going to tell you the title of this or anything else because, number one, I don't want to get my hand slapped. But number two, it can wait. It can wait 2 weeks. You know, it's so frustrating, is it not, America? Every day, 3 or 4 of these left-wing judges reversing decisions that the President of the United States has made. In fact, it's so bad. Rather than talk about what they've blocked, it's easier to talk about what they haven't blocked. We literally have the government being run now by about 20 to 30 federal district judges out of their courtrooms, out of their conference rooms with their 2 or 3 recently graduated law school clerks. I can promise you that is not our constitutional system. AP, a judge today, blocked the Trump administration from immediately enacting certain changes to how federal elections are run, including adding a proof of citizenship requirement to the federal voter registration form. To the federal voter registration form. The decision is a setback for President Trump. No, it's a setback for America. These judges are doing the dirty work of the Marxists, the Islamists, and the Democrat Party. The President has argued the requirement is needed to restore public confidence in elections. Since when did it become controversial to show that you're a citizen in order to register to vote? That's number one. Number two, since when is that not a presidential activity? And you're talking about a federal election form. That's number two. But the judge allowed other parts of Trump's sweeping executive order, as AP puts it, on U.S. elections to go forward for now, including a directive to tighten mail ballot deadlines around the country. So, honest to God, ladies and gentlemen, this is so grotesque. I could tell you who these judges are. U.S. District Judge Colleen Collar Cotelli. Interesting that AP doesn't tell you who appointed her. I'd have to look it up. I think it's Obama. Sided with voting rights groups and Democrats. Since when do voting rights groups have standing in a case like this? Saying that the Constitution gives the power to regulate federal elections to states and Congress, not the president. She noted federal lawmakers are currently working on their own legislation to require proof of citizenship to vote. Doesn't matter. President can work on it too. In a 120-page decision, she said the plaintiffs had proven that the proof of citizenship requirement would cause their clients irreparable harm. She's a friggin' liar. Proof of citizenship will cause irreparable harm? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And go against the public interest while the government had offered almost no defense of the president's order on the merits. These things have been litigated from one end of the country in one court after another for 20 years, taking on the Democrats in the various states' elections. There is and we've litigated some of them, Landmark Legal Foundation. There's absolutely no basis for the argument that people will be irreparably harmed if they're required to demonstrate they're citizens in order to register to vote. That's not a hill too hard to climb, let alone a mountain. Let alone a mountain. It's so outrageous what's happened here. Accordingly, she granted a preliminary injunction to stop the citizenship requirement from moving forward while the lawsuit plays out. She also blocked part of the Republican president's order requiring public assistance enrollees to have their citizenship assessed before getting access to the federal voter registration form. So what this phony judge has done, let's be honest, is what she's done is she's helped the Democrats by taking all the fraud barriers out of the president's order. Number one, you have to show you're a citizen. No, you don't. Number two, if you're getting public assistance, you have to show that you are a citizen. You don't just get, because you're on public assistance, a pass and you can register to vote. And so she's trying to help the Democrats because the Democrats are hell-bent on corrupt elections. And then when you call them out, do you have proof? Do you have proof? Well, here's proof right here. You and your judge have decided that you don't have to show citizenship, and if you're on a public assistance payroll, you don't have to show that you're on assistance either. That's it. Now, that's a lot of illegal aliens. Let's be honest. There's a lot of fraud on these public assistance payrolls. She knows it, this judge. She denied other requests from a group of Democrat plaintiffs, including refusing to block Trump's order to require all mail ballots to be received by Election Day nationwide. She also did not touch Trump's order to open certain databases to billionaire Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. The judge said those arguments brought by Democrats were either premature or should be brought by states instead. No, because she shot the heart out of what the president was doing. The plaintiffs had argued Trump's proof of citizenship requirement violated the Constitution's so-called elections clause, which gives states and Congress the authority to determine how elections are run. It always fascinates me. Which part of the Constitution they'll uphold, which part of the Constitution they embrace the original language or not. They also argued Trump's order asserts power that he does not have over an independent agency. Well, if he has no power over an independent agency, then that agency is unconstitutional because there's 3 branches of government, and that's it. And that's it. Aria Branch, counsel for the DNC and other Democratic plaintiffs, also argued the executive order's effort to tighten mail ballot deadlines would irreparably harm her clients by forcing them to reallocate resources to help voters navigate the changes. You understand? It irreparably harms their voters to prove that they're citizens. It irreparably harms their voters who are on public assistance roles to show that they're citizens. And he or she, Aria, argues that it irreparably harms their clients if you tighten the mail deadline and have a ballot deadline. I'm sorry, does voting really irreparably harm their clients? No, of course not. Now, Michael Gates, counsel for the Trump administration, said in the hearing a preliminary injunction wasn't warranted because the order hadn't been implemented and a citizenship requirement would not be on the federal voter registration form for many months. Roman Palomas, president of the League of United Latin American Citizens, a nonpartisan plaintiff. Are you kidding? Oh, yeah. Cheered the judge's decision. Victory for voters. I don't care what party you're in. I don't care. You know damn well why they don't want people to have to show that they're citizens to vote. They have flooded this country with tens of millions of illegal aliens. That's why.